Welcome back to another episode of STEM in Stilettos. This is your host, Zofia Morales, and today I'm here with Toni Rebic, and we will be discussing unlocking success, aligning with your authentic self in business. Before we swing into that, I'd like to invite you to get to know your own self a little bit better and find out what your number one leadership pitfall is by taking the Leadership Pitfall Quiz. You can find that at leadershippitfallquiz.com. And it takes about 2 minutes to invest to find out where that leadership blind spot might be for you. So give yourself the gift of some insight, leadershippitfallquiz.com. Welcome, Toni. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Zofia. Nice to see you.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and, oh shoot, I don't have your, how did I not get your introduction in here? Okay, so I'm gonna riff on the introduction. Toni Rebic is the creator of TrueSelf Psychology, and she's been a guest on my prior show a couple of different times, and I love bringing her on the show because she always brings such amazing insight with her. And you recently were part of a book that's being released or has recently been published. Share with us the title of that.
Mm-hmm. It's called Winning Strategies for Success. It's how to succeed in business in any market. So I wrote a chapter in this book. It's a Brian Tracy book. So for those who are less aware, Brian Tracy is one of the leaders when it comes to business. You can look him up on YouTube. He was basically my mentor when I was in my 20s, some 30 years ago. So he's fantastic and love his work. So it was really a joy to be part of his book club here.
Excellent. Yes, that's very exciting. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
So, can you share with our listeners here what true self psychology is and how it differs from like traditional psychological approaches?
Well, true self psychology, it came from years of working with clients as a psychologist. I'm a psychologist now, starting my 21st year. And when I started my practice, what I noticed was that a lot of people didn't have problems, like many problems. What they had was problems that kept coming back.
Oh,
So, for example, if you have a tendency to take things personally, well, you take things personally in different settings. If you have a self-confidence issues, well, that self-confidence issue, you wake up every day with that lack of self-confidence. So what I realize is that we are really creatures of habit and of conditioning. And then I thought, well, what if we just dealt with those patterns that kept coming back as opposed to all these conditions where they
mm,
manifest?
yeah,
And when I did that, well, less sessions were just necessary because we're working on the nervous system. We're working on, the patterns of the mind patterns and the behavior patterns that kept coming back. And that made it that people just felt better, felt more aligned and centered. So it is an alignment program as opposed to a psychology therapy program. Difference being therapy is a lot more in depth, a lot more exploring different, you're talking about different conditions. You stay a lot in the past. Has an alignment program, you're really dealing with those patterns that stem from the past, but that are still present today that you don't know how to get rid of. And then we
exactly. Well,
deal
and
with
I
that.
think one of the things with the traditional psychological approach is a lot of times it approaches from this perspective of you're broken. Are there something wrong with you? Which I would say a large percentage of the time is not the case.
Well, you're just conditioned in a way that doesn't serve you, that doesn't center you, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
like a lot of times we learn to take things personally very young, and yet I see people as adults taking things personally. But when I listen to their stories, I can see that it started at a younger age, for
Mm,
example. Or if you're feeling rejected because you were bullied in school, well, then later on in life, when you're dating somebody, you may quickly feel rejected if they don't call you back, or if you didn't get the promotion, you may quickly feel rejected because now that emotion is anchored into your nervous system. So
right. And you'll
there's,
really struggle if you're like cold
yep.
calling to raise money or sell your product to somebody. It's
Yeah.
going to be
And you're going to feel like
torture.
something is wrong with you when it's just that we just have a conditioning to realign, get rid
Absolutely.
of and build a new centered system. Yeah.
So, how does this being in alignment play into business success? And how does true self psychology facilitate that?
Okay. So when it comes to business, like anything in life, you want to grow. in it, right?
Yeah.
You want to expand and grow into it. Well, you can't grow if you don't feel good about yourself,
Hmm.
because not feeling good about yourself is going to limit your self-belief. It's going to limit your choices. I mean, you may want to apply for a job, you may want to apply for a promotion, but you will not feel you can. You'll not feel that confidence. You'll deny yourself. So if you don't feel good about yourself, you're going to reject yourself before even the opportunity
Yeah.
presents itself, right? And that's what makes people feel like they're stuck in the same position all the time, because they view themselves the same way all the time. So when
Mm.
you want to grow in your career, if you want to grow in business, you have to have the confidence and the self-assurance to make those leaps, to stretch yourself, to believe in yourself enough to move forward. And that
Mm.
requires alignment. And that's what alignment is. When you're the way you see yourself and the world around you supports who you are and what you want.
Yeah, I like that. I was reading a book recently called The Likeable Badass by Allison. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Fragile, I think maybe. But she had this section on imposter syndrome, which is a thing that
Yeah.
has come for me from time to time. And she gave an interesting perspective on that I'm like, oh, I think I can lean into that.
Mhm.
And her perspective was this: imposters don't have imposter syndrome. It's only highly qualified people who are striving for something larger than themselves, who are trying to do something significant in the world, that have this challenge. I'm like, okay, all right, I can own that.
Well, what's interesting with my clients that have had imposter syndrome is that they were still doing the job very well.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so it's not that you're not doing it, is that you fear that you'll screw up. You'll fear that somebody's going to discover that you're faking it. And
Mm,
so you can hear that disalignment. I'm doing the work, and yet there's a disbelief in myself at the same time. So that duality is actually what creates that nervousness, that anxiety that
yeah.
you're feeling, right? Instead of
Mm.
feeling centered and calm and owning that, yeah, yeah, I am good at this, and I can
Yeah,
be,
I am going places with this.
and it's hard when you think
Yeah,
about it, it's hard for people to say, I am good at this.
yeah.
You don't hear that too often.
Well, and I don't think we're really raised to say that, right? This
Mhm.
whole don't put yourself forward, be humble, kind of messaging we get as young girls. I don't know about young boys because I wasn't one. But
Well,
yeah.
women, generally speaking, are a little bit more held back. Men are generally speaking given more opportunities. But I also think that when you're centered with yourself, none of that stuff matters as much because of that confidence. Like the confidence will override a lot of these negativities. And that's why I think it is so important to be centered, because you understand that you trust yourself so much that you don't believe others, you know. But
Yes.
but when you
Well,
don't believe
eh,
in yourself, you're going to listen to that naysayer.
yeah, exactly. Well, and you need that when you're going and starting your own business and doing
Mhm.
this entrepreneurial thing. You need to be able to stand in what you see and the possibilities that are out there for you, when other
Mhm.
people are going, oh no, be safe, go back and get that corporate paycheck again, that kind of thing. It's really, really tough to create your own thing if you don't have that core inside of you that says, you know what, I
Mhm.
can trust my
Yeah.
instincts on this. Yeah.
Yeah. A big thing also is you got to be driven if you want something of your own. You got to be driven and you want to serve where you're good at.
Yeah.
So if you're, for example, yourself, if you're good in business and you can give advice in business. If you're good at doing yoga, well, you can give advice on how to do yoga, right? But you always want to serve where you're good at. And that's where you will always prosper, where you're good at, because you're confident there, you're stronger there. It's harder to feel confident when it's not something you're practiced at or good at.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how does alignment,
Hmm.
this kind of foundation of true self
Yeah.
psychology, help women who are coping with insecurities or self doubt or imposter syndrome in the
Mhm.
workplace or in the marketplace, depending on if you're
Yeah.
in a corporation or creating your own?
Well, to start, we have to understand what alignment is. So, alignment by my definition, is when your thoughts support who you are and what you want. So let's say I want to open a business, but then I don't trust myself, or I doubt my ability, or I have this inner voice that says, well, maybe I can't do that. That split energy between my desire and the way I talk to myself is the angst that I'm feeling.
Mm.
And that will slow you down. The greater your negative emotion, the more you're slowed down to even paralyze and you'll stop yourself. That's what makes people not progress many times. A lot of talented people didn't make it just because they didn't believe in themselves, not because they
Mm.
didn't have the talent or the opportunity, but they didn't see it in themselves. So alignment is when your inner dialogue, the way you are most influenced is your inner dialogue, can support who you are and what you want. And for that, you need to know who you are. You need to kind of explore. And I'm going to take a time to say something to your audience about this is there's this exercise I do when people work with me where I ask them, what is it about you that you know that has always been there? Like you were like this at 7, at 12, at 25, today, that that trait is still there. And it can take up to 20 minutes, 30 minutes for some people to come up with 8 of them, 8 traits. People
Wow.
don't know themselves. I've had people break down crying at that question, or after finding 3, they just wanted to move on. They were struggling and that tells me people are not, they're so focused on task that they're not focused on who they are to do that task. And
Yes.
you need to connect with who you are. If you want your self-esteem to rise, you need to get to know yourself and like yourself. Because if you
Yeah.
don't, it's like you're trying to move forward, struggling within at the same time. That's difficult. So not
Yeah.
only are you trying to deal with what I need to do to get better in my work, career, or business, but I'm doing it while struggling with myself,
Hmm. Well,
instead
and
of
it's
being
amazing
centered.
how far you can go even when you are struggling with yourself. Because I mean, I was in my 40s before I realized the reason I was very unhappy with my circumstances was because the values that I was living from weren't mine. I thought they
Mhm.
were. For 40 years, I thought they were
Yeah.
my values, but
Mhm.
it came to me in my 40s the reason that it's not aligning when I make choices according to this set of values is it's not mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And people don't question their values and beliefs. It's so ingrained, and that's part of the conditioning. But many times I'll ask a client, what do you think today? Like, does this really agree with you still today, that belief, that value? And many times people, when they think about it, they're going to see, no, it doesn't. Like they've either that in owning themselves, they'll see that value or that belief doesn't suit them anymore, or they've outgrown it.
Right.
You progress, right? So if you want things to be easier for you when you progress at something, you got to be centered with yourself. That inner voice has to become your best friend, you know?
Mm. Yeah, let's talk about that inner voice for a minute. who,
I'm talking to you right now.
who is that inner voice? And
Well,
how do you turn it into a friend?
well, there are really 2 voices. Sometimes it may feel like a dozen there, but 2 main voices. And one is your true self, who you really are at your core. It's the person that has the desire, the wants, and the cravings for better. The person that has all those traits that make you, that people recognize in you. And then there's the conditioned voice, often referred to the subconscious voice, where it's your learned behavior. So you can feel capable to do something, but you learned that you're not capable, that you're not as good as you think you are, right? So
Mm-hmm.
again, that duality between who you are and how you think versus how you think about yourself, if that's in conflict, it's very hard to move forward.
Yeah. How do you bring them into alignment?
The work.
The work, lots
It's
of
alignment
work.
work. Give me a call.
Is there a small step that we can take forward on our own to start going
What,
that direction?
well, one of the questions you can ask yourself is that, do I like the way I think? If you ask
Mm.
yourself, because we tend to believe what we think, but do you like
Yes.
it? Do you like it? Does it work for you? And if you feel no, no, it doesn't, that means that voice is a conditioned voice and not your voice. And that's how you
Mm.
know that the way you think is not supporting you. And the other way you also know is how you feel. Your feelings are actually talking to you. So if you don't feel good, that's the inner struggle you're experiencing. And
Mm.
the more you close the gap between the way you think and who you are, the more you're finding relief within yourself and you're feeling more and more centered and better about yourself. So I would say one of the things to do is to ask those questions, but it's by no means a trick. I've been doing this for, like I said, I'm in my 21st year, 35 years in personal development, and there's you got to do the work. You got to get to know yourself to be
Mm.
yourself, because life situations, circumstances, people, events, growing up changes you. It
Yeah,
affects your character, it affects your personality, how you see yourself. So the work that you end up doing is to find yourself again, and so that you can be yourself and live your true self. That's where true self psychology came from.
excellent. It sounds really simple, but oftentimes these simple things seem a little tricky.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta love the journey. So when your audience hears me talk about the work, I'm not talking about hard work. I'm just talking about valued work. Like care enough about yourself to do this work so that you are enjoying the journey to connecting with yourself, to being yourself. And in that centeredness, that's where all your core strength is. And that's when you pursue your career, your business, you're doing with clarity of mind and strength and inner peace and focus and dedication. It's easier when you're feeling good about yourself.
Excellent. Excellent. So we are coming up on our first break already, and I like to give a little bit of homework over the break. So, what was that first question we were supposed to ponder? And we'll make that our assignment.
Mhm. When you're thinking about different tasks in your life, ask yourself, do I like the way I'm thinking about this? Does it
Mm,
resonate with me? Does it make sense to me even? Like question your thinking. And if you don't like it, that's the real you saying, this doesn't work for me.
okay. So
And that's the
that's
work.
your homework, people. Think about how you're thinking about the things that are going on
Yep.
in your life, in your world, and the things that are on your plate for you to do. And find just inquire of yourself, of your emotions, of your body. How do I like that? How do I respond to those thoughts? And hang with us. We will be right back from the break.
All right.
Oh, check it loud, the world here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales, and I'm returning with the amazing and wonderful Toni Rebic, the founder, originator of TrueSelf Psychology. And so we asked people to think about this question about how do I like how I'm thinking about things to kind of understand and parse through what is your true self and what is like this pre-programmed stuff that was stuffed into your brain when you were a child or that you created when you were a child to try and make sense of the things that were going on in your world. We're coming back here from the break. We're business women. A lot of us are spouses or partners, and we've got kids and activities and maybe family we're caring for. And now you're suggesting that perhaps we should put the work on this list as well. So incentivize us a little bit. What is the return on investment in your professional life, your personal life, and your enjoyment of life in general to bring this into your busy schedule and onto your list of priorities?
You mean the alignment work?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That's actually, I like that question because most people don't realize that they carry their suffering. They
Mm,
carry or their conditioning that I'm talking about negative conditioning because everything technically is conditioning in a manner that doesn't serve them, that doesn't help them. And they're just so used to it. You're so used to criticizing yourself. You're so used to telling yourself you can't or that you have a limit that you don't
yes.
realize that's a learned behavior, that it's not true. And very often the struggle that you feel, if your audience can hear this, the struggle you feel is because you know that limit is not you, that you can
Mm,
feel that you're hitting yourself against that limit, but you're so made to believe that to be true that it's become your reality, right?
yes. It's
And
normal. Everyone
yeah, it's
operates this
normal.
way. Yeah.
And it's not that it's normal, it's habitual. It's become such a habit that you see it as your identity. But if you're unhappy, and this is really, if you can understand this, it's everything. If you don't feel happy with the way it is, that means it's not the way it's meant to be.
Mm,
Okay. If you're not happy with the way it is, then it's not the real you. That's how you know. Because if you, I'm gonna give you a good example instead. I had a client coming to see me and he just loved making people laugh.
yeah.
And he loved being social and having fun with people. And the reason he actually came to see me was for social anxiety. He
Oh,
felt
wow.
exactly
That was not what I
not
was expecting
expected.
you to say.
So he's very nervous around people. He's constantly feeling judged because he was bullied, and that stayed with him. And but when we were looking at his core and doing some alignment exercises, he just loved connecting with people. So that discrepancy between how you're feeling, the fear of other people's judgment, and your desire to make them laugh, to actually socialize, that duality is the tension, the anxiety you're actually feeling. So the
Mm,
anxiety is there to tell you that you're not centered, that the way you're thinking is not supporting you. And so when we did the alignment work and he started feeling really nice and centered, he was going out there and he started doing all these gigs, comedy gigs, and he was just having a blast afterwards because he didn't have that resistance. But that resistance was within him since high school. For
mm,
him, it
yeah.
was quote unquote normal. But if it was normal, it wouldn't feel so bad. But it was habitual. So I just want to make that distinction that what's habitual is not necessarily normal. If it was normal, it wouldn't hurt, it wouldn't feel bad, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the distinction to make there. And the reason why you want to do this alignment work or any kind of work per se, but of course, I'm going to advocate for my program, is because I get clients that within a few weeks, a few months, feel relieved from all that negative conditioning that they've been carrying for years. So
Mm,
that means what? That means you don't have to suffer. You don't have to continuing carrying a negative conditioning or pain bodies, which is pain you're holding on to, pain bodies for longer. Get the work, get the help you need so that it's relieved from your nervous system and you'll come back to your center because you have a natural self. So when you let that go, you just become more of yourself naturally. So when you're asking what's the benefit of doing this work, is that you end up being true to yourself. You end up finding all that inner strength that you're looking for in all the books and all the
the
all the
confidence.
these podcasts. You're trying to get
Exactly. Practice
yeah,
that power pose. Soon you will
exactly.
feel confident.
So what you're looking for is really within, and that's what it means that it is within. But you have to recondition it in, and it's
Okay.
doable.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about like back in earlier in my journey, right? It can feel pretty overwhelming when you've kind of neglected this aspect of your life and just been pushing through
Mhm.
and doing it despite of the negative voice and the bad feelings and this sort of stuff. And it can feel like if I get started on this, I'm just going to unravel into this pile of unmanageable mush and my life is going to fall apart. How do you address those sorts of concerns?
That is a good question. I think I like that question also because I think a lot of people stop themselves from getting the help they need because they're afraid of what
Mm.
would happen if they start talking, if they start unraveling. And what I want, and it's justified, at the same time, the relief you feel in letting go and realigning your thought patterns to who you are brings that joy that you're looking for. And whatever stress, pain sometimes you need to go through is temporary compared to carrying it. Because I'm going to ask you a quick question. Actually, I'm going to ask your
Sure.
audience this as well. You can, I'm not going to hear the answer,
They
but
they can play along.
play along. Okay. If you knew that everything was going to be okay, if you knew that everything was going to be okay, which one would you choose? a heart attack or cancer?
Hmm.
You knew that everything was going to be okay.
If I knew everything was going to be okay in the end, I think I would probably go for the heart attack because it's quicker.
Yeah, that's what most people will tell me.
Yeah.
Most people will say the heart attack, and yet most people will choose the cancer route when it comes to our emotions, right? Because it's not as strong, but it's long.
Hmm.
And they're afraid of that quick pain they may feel, but then you release it after,
Yeah.
right? Because you are carrying this pain. It's just there. So it's your choice. Do you want to go through it so that you can let it go, so that you find your sense of self and your confidence and your esteem to pursue more of the life you want? Or do you want to carry the fear that holds on to that pain?
Hmm.
And then you're kind of always feeling this diminished self. Because that's what most people feel when they don't accomplish what they want. It's not that they don't accomplish what they want that hurts them the most, is that they are not the person they need to be in order to accomplish that thing they want. Because that's what hurts. Not being true to yourself is actually what hurts, you know?
Oh, wow. So, how do we justify to ourselves doing this work? How does this play into leadership and business? How does this spill into our professional goals?
One of the things, the main object that I wrote in that chapter in Winning Strategies was because my advantage, I've worked with thousands of individuals across my career, at the individual basis and also at the group basis. At the individual, you're in depth, right? You
Yeah.
understand the psyche a lot more. And so I get to hear people's problems at work. I get to hear what they say about
Yeah.
work, right? Even if they don't come to see me for that. And one of the things that I would see is how important your emotions were at work, how you felt about working where you worked, how you felt about yourself, how you felt about what people thought about you, how you felt speaking up in a meeting, about asking for a raise or an opportunity, about even today, I was talking with a client and she was talking about moving positions, and she had to tell her boss that she's changing positions, and she was concerned what her boss would think about her, you
Hmm.
know. And she had to learn how to think about it in a way that she focused more on herself rather than what her boss would think about her leaving. So everything is emotional. There's not a thing in the world that's not emotional. And when you're in business, when you're in career, even you and me today, let's say we're having this conversation, everything is emotional. So your clients, your listeners are listening because they're trying to get a solution. They're hoping we're going to say something here that's going to resonate with them and that's going to make them, oh yeah, let's click in or something. We're always looking to be better. We're always looking to improve, solve a problem, to understand ourselves more. So it's really pretty much part of our makeup, even though we don't realize it.
Hmm.
But when it comes to business and career, your esteem matters. Your self-confidence, your self-worth, how you view yourself matters because it makes all your decisions. You don't make the
Hmm.
same decision when you feel good about yourself and when you don't pursue the same opportunities when you don't feel good about yourself versus when you don't. So you are the starting point of all your decisions, whether they're in relationships or in business. But a lot of times in business, I think that people don't progress because emotionally they're not healthy enough. And
Hmm.
but the better, the healthier they are emotionally, the more they pursue the very things they want.
Sit with that here for a second.
A lot of words, a lot of ideas
Well,
packed.
a lot of concept coming through there that's like a lot of times we'll sit in this position and go, I'm stuck here, right? I've been
Yeah,
passed over for
mhm,
promotions
yeah.
and all of the things and I'm stuck here.
And
How do
and
we
a lot
start
of
to shift out of those kind of situations? Because I have found in my life there are always external reasons and internal reasons.
always start with the internal ones because I think people, especially at work, don't look at that enough. They're going to say, let's say they've been passed on. They're going to say, okay, what's wrong with me? Don't I have enough skills? My boss doesn't like me. Sometimes they'll go the emotional route and say, "Well, maybe they don't like me enough." But they,
Or maybe they like me too much.
Yeah,
I
they don't
don't
want
want
me to
you to
leave.
leave.
That's right. You fit, it's nice for you to stay small for us here. Um, but your strength comes from who you are, comes from how you feel about yourself. Everything you do comes from how you feel about yourself. Think of it when it comes to a relationship, when it comes to money, even, how you feel about yourself with money it decides how much you have in a bank account. So I think it's better than it was, let's say from 20 years ago, but I think there's still room to really understand how important how you feel about yourself means, how it plays into all your decisions, and to whether you stop or go, whether you say yes or no, whether you tolerate or don't, whether you get up and leave or sit down and put up with
And
things that
take it. Yeah.
and take it, right? So how you feel about yourself is so important. And I always tell my clients before making any decision, before leaving a relationship, before quitting a job, get centered because then you're going to make
Mm.
the right decision for yourself as opposed to an impulsive one that later on either you regret or you
Yeah,
end up
it's
repeating.
take this job and shove it, right?
Yeah.
Wait, how am I paying the rent?
And I've had clients
Yeah.
that when they felt centered, loved their job afterwards, not because they were necessarily the problem, but they were contributing to a negative synergy in, let's say, the atmosphere. You may think the other person is the one being mean to you, but they think you're the one being mean, you
Yeah.
know? And then we're back and forth. We're having this negative ping pong between you and, let's say, coworkers. But the minute you're more centered, you don't throw back a negative ping pong. You just start being more friendly, you start being more helpful, and that may change the dynamic of either the relationship or the work environment, just that alone. So people have really made different decisions when they're more centered, and it's always the better decision for you. And sometimes that better decision is to leave, but at least leave centered because
Yeah.
then I
And
also
with a transition plan, right?
well, when you're centered, when you leave, you end up also making a better decision after you leave. You'll find that better job.
Yeah.
You'll choose something that is now at your level versus to a lesser level. Because a lot of
Right.
people
Or
take what
out
they
of
can.
desperation. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you believe in yourself, you kind of like go after the very thing that you feel resonates with what you think you deserve.
Mm. Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. Is it possible to get something you don't think you deserve?
Is it possible to get something you don't think you deserve? I think if you do, you won't be able to hang on to it.
Hmm.
That's where a lot of people say, well, I did get the job or I did get the relationship, but quote unquote, I screwed things up or I sabotaged myself. I think that's what will happen. You can't hold on to it. I don't think that. It wouldn't make sense because this is a world of vibration, of attraction, of frequency. And so if you don't believe you deserve something, you're going to work harder to push it away than to attract it.
Mm. Okay. All right.
When you
Hmm.
think of it like that, it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. So, how do we find effective ways to stay in alignment with our true selves and not reflexively fall back on like the values of our mom or our dad or the company instead of our own true values when we're faced with difficult decisions and catch 22s as you're moving forward?
Well, part of it is getting to know who you are for sure. But even in that question you just said, it's outward. My parents, my boss, my experience, it's an outward view. And you got to look inward. You got to ask yourself, what is it that I want? What do I need? And without self-judgment, if you can ask yourself questions without the judgment of self, you're going to allow yourself to come up with the answers.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe something that takes a little practice because I know in my own life, and I've seen with clients as well, that you ask them what they want and they will give you a list of what they don't want.
Yes, they're more focused on what they don't want. But in all honesty, if you do it on your own, it's the long way there. I
Yeah.
did it on my own and I took the long way there. And I think it suited my journey because of what I do. But it's so not necessary. Get yourself a good coach, get yourself an alignment coach or psychologist. Work with people that you can trust because then you're shortening the journey. You're
Mm.
getting there faster when you're guided, when somebody's there to work with you through these process exercises.
Yeah. Well, and I would also suggest when you're thinking about this, right? Because a lot of the time is a factor, the commitment to the journey is a factor, but then there is also a monetary aspect a lot of times when you hire help to get you there.
Mhm.
Um, and I guess what I would like to put out there to everyone who's tuning in and dialing in, you can do that ROI, return on investment for the cost that you're going through here in two ways. You can look at what is it costing you at your current hourly
Mm.
rate or salary, whatever you're working for. What percentage of that are you reinvesting in yourself to be able to live more peacefully and make the choices and get the rewards that you deserve in this life? And also look at where you want to be. How
Mhm.
much is it costing you to not be in that position right now? And what's it worth to you to get there faster? So I would look at that number from two perspectives because it's eye opening how much it's costing you to take the long route. So we are up on our second break, and I would encourage you to do that ROI analysis as we go through the break here and hang with us. We'll be right back.
Oh, check it out, the world here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Welcome back from the break. We really appreciate you hanging in with us. This is Zofia Morales, and I am still here with the amazing and wonderful Toni Rebic. Before the break, I gave the listeners a little assignment, and you expressed a desire to dig a little bit more deeply into why people might have challenges with that assignment. So, would you
Mhm.
like to share what that is?
Sure. One of the things that I think one of the best place somebody can be is fed up. When
Mm.
you're fed up, you want to make change. But it can take a while before you get fed up because you're so used to wallowing in that energy and that pain you're feeling, or that discomfort, or that frustration, upset, anger, resentment. All those emotions are, you're so habituated to them. They're so normalized that it's very hard to see beyond it. Like some people have a hard time visualizing what would my life be if I did take a chance, if I did work on myself. And because it's so hard to see, you end up being stuck longer where you are
Mm.
until hopefully one day you get fed up enough to say, I'm going to go get some help. So here's what I would propose. Get some help anyways. Number one, just get the help. Don't wait till you're fed up because you're just delaying. You're just staying longer in a negative environment or place, and make it fun. You don't have to go get help because something's wrong. You can go get help because you want to make things right, because you want to make things better. So you can have the attitude of, let me learn how to think. And that's, for example, the TrueSelf Psychology program teaches people how to think, because nobody teaches us how to think when we're young.
No,
We're
no,
taught
it's
what to
on the
think,
list of
right?
things you don't
But
talk
not
about. Yeah.
exactly. You're told how to think and then you regurgitate and repeat, as opposed to really consciously choose, how do I want to see this to make an informed, better decision? So learn how to think. Use it as something to, instead of,
Can I pause
yeah.
that for a second? Because the thing you said right there, I think is probably maybe foreign
Hmm.
to many people that you can choose how to think about a thing as opposed to it's this reflexive
Hmm.
reaction that I have that dictates how I think about a thing.
Absolutely. And in with the True Self Psychology program, that's what you learn. One of the things that created this program, actually several created this program, one of which is when I would work with clients, I would see how unconscious they were. They would tell me a story, not realizing that they took it personally in the story. They would
Mm,
tell me how positive they are as a person, but they kept being negative in their
yeah,
talking, you know, and they weren't realizing how all that inner dialogue affects you. So, how do you change when you don't even notice how you're thinking? How do you
yeah.
change something when you're not even aware. So part of the exercises we do is to help people be more aware so that you can have that pullback and you can choose then how you want to think. So instead of being reactive, you're being responsive and you're coming from a place of your core traits. You connect with your core and then come from there. So it's a very conscious thinking. And you can learn how to think consciously. And just from that, you start thinking better feeling thoughts instead of being thinking thoughts that, you know, like worry, like taking personally, like wondering what people think. Ruminating is a big one.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when I said
Let
that, a
me
lot of
play
people are
that
like,
back a million times and how I could have been different. Yes.
and so you can break all those patterns, and your audience does have access if they want to go to the website, trueself-psychology.com. And on my website, you get you can download a booklet where you're going to discover which of the mind patterns are most affecting you, and you need to remove them in order to feel more
Yeah.
centered and aligned.
And I believe we have that link in the show notes as well. So,
Excellent. Exactly. Whether you want to work with me, do one of my classes, work with one of my coaches, or even work with someone on your own, you need to know as long as these patterns are there, you will be affected by them. And the other thing, let's say if somebody says they don't have a lot of money. First of all,
yes, that I was going to ask you about because that's one of the big reasons that people a lot of times don't go for therapy or psychological assistance is
yeah,
it's expensive. Like the health insurance doesn't want to cover it, you know?
sure. Two things. I think people don't prioritize it enough. And because I've had clients be on a budget, but going on a vacation or justified. I mean, everybody should have a vacation technically. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that they don't realize how much they don't prioritize putting money into themselves. And I think that when you put money into yourself, the payback is huge. It's going to come back to you in so many forms. You know, either happier life, asking for a higher raise, getting a job where you feel like you're worth more and you're going to get a return on your investment that
Right.
way.
Well, and it's something that no one can take away from you. I
No
mean,
one
if
can
you
take away,
buy
and
a
it builds on
car,
itself.
if you go on a
Yeah.
vacation or whatever the thing is, you know,
Or even
someone can
education.
steal
Yeah.
it, wreck it, ruin it,
Yeah.
but what you invest in yourself is always yours.
And it's everything because even the car you bought it based on how you think about yourself. Every
Mm,
decision you make is based on what you eat is based on what you feel about yourself and what you think of yourself. Every
yes.
decision you make. So
Emotional eater over here.
absolutely.
That
Emotional
one
eater or
lands.
undereater. And people I think don't realize that if your audience would take away something today, I would want them to take away this. Every decision starts with you, starts with how you feel about yourself. So you got to improve how you feel about yourself. And for that, you need to get to know yourself. But let's say you really, 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 really don't have any money right now.
Well, yeah, because those times in life sometimes arrive.
Yeah, sometimes they're there. I would tell you when you listen, because I'm sure a lot of your audience members, if they're listening to this, they're also reading books or listening to podcasts, other podcasts. You got to come back to this one, by the way. But if you're going to listen and not write anything down, if you're going to hear the exercises and not do them, it's worth 10%.
Yeah.
Because knowledge changes nothing. Everybody knows things they need to do.
Applied
It's
knowledge is where it's at.
applied knowledge that
Yep.
actually transforms, and it has to be consistent across time. So that means not just once, you got to consistently do it across until that becomes
Yeah.
habitual. That's what actually creates transformation and change. So if you're going to read a book but not do the exercise, it's knowledge in terms of it's like seeds. You just put seed in your brain, but there's no roots from these
Yeah.
seeds.
You didn't put it on soil. You didn't give it any water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're going to do the exercises, then you get that transformation. It helps to work with someone, but if you're going to do it on your own, at least do the assignments and it's going to make some kind of shift. And sometimes that shift is enough for you to say, I'm done, I'm fed up. Now I really am going to go get the help I need to
Yeah.
work with somebody.
I love that. I love that. I know as a woman, I've had a terrible time. I'm a recovering boundaryless person. Let's put it that way. How
Okay.
does true self psychology help business women deal with the boundary kind of issues? And how does setting boundaries make your business better?
Okay, there's different ways of seeing boundaries. If you're talking about boundaries you need to make or boundaries that are set upon you.
I'm talking about boundaries I need to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boundaries bring clarity. That's what boundaries are, and they keep your strength intact. What does that mean? When people cross their boundaries, they feel it. They
Mm,
feel it in, oh God, I wish I would have said no, but I said yes. They feel it in their resentment that I didn't have the guts to say, or I feel bad about myself that if I would have said no, I would have. That, all that guilt tripping, that's conditioning. Boundaries are there for a reason. They're there to balance between what you can offer and what someone can receive from you. And if you
yes.
cross your boundary, you're going to drain. You're going to drain.
Mm,
When people come to my office because they have burnout, I know they don't know how to set boundaries,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're the yes sayers. They're doing it for everybody. They're stretching themselves. Have a hard time saying no. And they didn't listen to, and let me tell you, you know this, your voice is telling you to set those boundaries and you're not listening,
Hmm.
right? You're
Yeah.
you're hearing in your voice, stop, rest, relax, say no, and you go against that voice. That's you pushing that boundary.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for it.
Absolutely. I'm actually reading a book right now called The No Club. And it's about a bunch of
That's a
women
good.
who got together. And it's like, okay, how do we say no to doing all of this stuff that our community and our business environment expects us to do, in addition to the actual work that makes us promotable and puts us
Well,
in line for raises and this kind of stuff? How do we deal with this? And so I would highly recommend that book if you've been having trouble saying no, and if you've been having trouble getting things off of your plate once they arrive on your plate. Because I've found a lot of times, especially if you're dealing with like a boss who comes with
mhm,
and one more thing and one more thing, at the moment to negotiate getting shit off your plate, pardon my French,
mhm,
is
sure.
in that moment where there's that new ask. It's like, I would love to do that for you. However, I need to offload
Yep.
X, Y, and Z in order to make that happen.
I think a big difference, if we're going to genderize this a little bit, is also the guilt.
Mm,
Women have to learn not to feel guilty saying no.
yeah.
That saying no means yes to something greater. And you got to
Yes.
focus on, because greatness comes with focus. And if you're saying yes to everything, you're spreading yourself thin. This is what creates burnout. And then people around you will move on ahead because they were focused. They knew how to say no, they knew how to set boundaries. And you're spreading yourself so thin, and that includes with, let's say, the home life,
Hmm.
that's where you get exhausted.
Yeah, that brings us into the realm of what they call in this book the implicit no. Because
Hmm.
every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else that's important to you. And I like the one of the exercises they have, which is okay, think about what's important in your life, in your world, and what are the implicit no's? What are the things you're saying no to when you say yes to this other thing that this other person wants? Is it the ability to spend time watching your kids play soccer? Is it the
Mhm.
dinner you had planned with your spouse that evening when someone comes with a last minute request to proof something, right? Think carefully about those before you answer that response.
And attached to that is know what you want. Because if you're going to come back, let's say, to the idea of business, you have to say no in business. You have to
Amen.
know to say no, when to say no. And that no is a lot of clarity. No makes other things happen. So if you know what you want, if what the end goal is, including if you want, let's say, spending more time with your kids on weekends. So you have to know what you want and then say no to anything that contradicts it. If you
Yes.
want to make your cold calling, you need to make 10 cold calls today, but you have intrusions. You have to say no to those intrusions because whatever you keep saying yes to that you should be saying no to is actually, it's like you're saying, okay, I'm going to allow this to sabotage my goals. I'm going to allow this
Mm.
to, and then it becomes a bad habit to always say yes to things. Then people are used to you saying yes to things. So that's why they keep coming back to you for you to say yes to them.
Exactly, exactly. If you want something done, give it to a busy person. It's like, I am not your busy person, go away. So, what's the first step somebody should take if they want to explore going down this road with you around true self psychology?
Mhm. On my website, I would suggest to download the booklet because that's what we're going to work on, and plus the any pain bodies if you work with me. Also, I my class is coming out soon. I've been doing the Stand in Your Power class for many years, and now we're going to put it out online shortly. I'm going to let you know. You can let your audience know. And but you got to do some alignment work. You got to work on making sure that you got to learn how to think so that your thoughts support who you are and what you want. Ultimately, if you get that, you get a lot of what you want in life. You get
Yeah.
a lot of self-assurance, self-confidence, self-esteem, and a lot of more, the probability of you getting more of what you want just increased.
I love that. I love that. And if you've
And
taken the what is your number one leadership pitfall quiz, you will get
yeah,
that announcement when she shares that information with me. So,
yeah,
another
and
reason you should take that quiz.
there you go. And I'm reachable through the website. And once the class is announced, you can let your people know because we're going to offer them a rebate.
Excellent. I love that. Discounts are always amazing. Thank you so much for coming and joining us
Thank you for
today
the
and sharing your
invitation.
wisdom. It's been a
I
joy,
love
as
it.
always, talking with
Oh, it's
you.
nice. Yes. Thank you.
And thank you to all of you out there in listener land. Yes, I do this show for you guys to help us move forward in a smoother way and to release the baggage and the crap that they're carrying around with us. You know, we want to be these high performing women, but you can't run fast when you're dragging your luggage behind you. So I really want to see us succeed. Let me know if there's a topic you want me to take on or somebody you really think I should be talking to help make that dream a reality. You can reach me at Zofia at steminstilettos.com. That's Zofia at steminstilettos.com. And until next week, go out, be bold, be beautiful, and be amazing.